From the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Well, we just got the news about Joel Embiid on SportsCenter. Joel Embiid has been ruled out for tonight's game. Definitely a disappointment. We'll get into that. Plus, the Eagles' busy weekend. You know, it's a good thing the Eagles had a good weekend because for Sixer fans, this is a major letdown. You know, you wait for this moment all year long to see the best players in the world play on the highest level, and Embiid, a couple things we'll get into, but they just said on SportsCenter. But Embiid is out. The sprained LCL in his knee is not good enough for him to play tonight. So we'll dig deeper into that. What does that mean for the Sixers in this series? As I said, also we'll get into the Eagles this hour. Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press will join us in less than 20 minutes from now because a lot happened in the NFL this weekend. We are actually at a point right now where we all thought that there were certain players who were going to get traded and none of them got traded. And I got to tell you that the fact that the person who was traded was DeAndre Swift is a huge thing we have to get into as well, because that news came down after I was done with Billy Schweim on Saturday. So I haven't had a chance to talk on the radio about it. So we'll get into all that. Plus, if we get time to get to it this hour, the Phillies, they win again. What does it mean? 2 out of 3 against the Astros? Yeah, they lost Sunday Night Baseball, but winning those first 2 games were big. So we will get into the Phillies as well. As always, you can join the conversation at 609-403-0973. You also can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. All right, let's get into this Embiid news. So they made a very interesting comment on SportsCenter before I just jumped on here. And that is, they said that part of Embiid working out today was to see what he could do on Wednesday. So it sounds very much to me like the Sixers never planned for him to play today at all. That today was really never a legitimate option. That today was more about seeing his progress in a return for Wednesday. And what that means is the Sixers are going into tonight's game with a very interesting opportunity. Can they play well enough to make this an interesting game tonight? Because if they can make this an interesting game tonight, then how does that change how we view on Wednesday when Embiid does come back? Look, I'm going to tell you guys right now, I am a believer in protecting athletes from themselves. I think that you have a situation where I think the Sixers realized that they didn't want Embiid to potentially re-injure himself or make it worse by coming back too soon. I'm not Joel Embiid. I don't understand exactly what the status of his knee is, but I feel like this is an example of the team trying to protect Joel from himself. So what does that mean for tonight? What that means for tonight is you have a very interesting matchup because the 76ers, which you can hear tonight at 7:30 here on 97.3 ESPN, Tom McGinnis on the call, the Sixers got to make up their mind about what their starting lineup is. Now, I told Mike Gill on the Sports Bash earlier today on 97.3 ESPN, the lineup that I would put out there is maybe not the best lineup, but it's a strategic lineup. If I was Doc Rivers, I would actually not start Paul Reed tonight. My starting lineup tonight, I would go out there with PJ Tucker, Jaden McDaniels, Tobias Harris, Maxey and Harden. And I know that's not an ideal lineup, but here's why I would do that. I think McDaniels has a real chance to have an impact on this series. I think that his versatility in switching on the court is a very important weapon for Philadelphia. And now, if you're having Reed come in, whenever the Celtics' first round of substitutions come in, then what you're doing is you're forcing the Celtics to not have their best players on the floor when Reed is on the floor, which allows Reed to maybe be protected a little bit from getting into foul trouble. Personally, that's what I would do. I would take Reed off the bench. I would let Tobias Harris and PJ Tucker deal with the Williams and Horford. Sounds like a law firm. Williams, Horford, and Williams. But, Robert Williams, Grant Williams, and Al Horford. That's what I would do with those guys. I would say Tobias and PJ Tucker, you're going to switch back and forth between those two guys. Whoever's on the floor in that combination of those three. And I would turn to McDaniels and say, look, you're going to deal with Tatum for about 6 minutes. Just do your best. And then I'm going to hope that Harden can give Brown enough of make him work hard enough for his points, and then hope Maxey doesn't get into foul trouble against Smart. I think that's the only strategy you got tonight. If you're the Sixers, you got to play matchups. And then I think that when Derek White comes off the bench, you get DeAnthony Melton out there immediately. And then if the combination of Maxey and Harden struggle defensively in the first half, you start the second half with DeAnthony Melton. I think that's the only solution for tonight's game. I'm not saying that there's no chance for the Sixers win tonight, but your chances are very slim. Because for as much as I look at Boston and I see that they are not as dominant of a team as last year, I still think that Boston's big two right now are just that much better than the two best players you have on the floor for the Sixers. Maxey and Harden are just not on the same level as Tatum and Brown. Now, is there a huge drop-off? I wouldn't say a huge drop-off, but I do think there's enough of a drop-off that if the Celtics don't win this game tonight, I would be shocked. 609-403-0973. That's text. We're also could DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. I mentioned the Phillies. If you didn't see 973ESPN.com or 973 ESPN mobile app, Bryce Harper is back. Now, I'm not surprised that Harper is back. I'm surprised that they're allowing him to come back during this road trip. I know that his doctor is in LA who did the surgery. So I understand that is a part of the equation. But I would have loved to have seen Harper make his return with the home crowd in Philadelphia. I think that would have been electric. That would have been remember last year when Harper came back and the fans lost their minds and it was an amazing moment? I was kind of hoping that Harper and the fans would get to relive that juice again this year. I tend to believe that any opportunity you have to get the crowd extra excited, you let it happen. Look, they're still be happy when they see him this weekend. Harper coming back is also a very interesting question about where does his team go from here? They didn't have a bad April, considering that the 2008 and 2009 Phillies struggled in the month of April. This team wasn't so bad. Hitting 2 out of 3 against the Astros, to me, was huge. You exercised some of the demons. You faced yourself in the mirror. You took the obstacle head on. I think that's a positive. Look, going 15-4 in that month is a great opportunity to say, hey, we survived a month without Harper. We survived. Look, the 2007 Phillies, they were 11-14 in the month of April. You go back to 2008, the team that won the World Series, their April was 15-12. Not exactly dominating the world there, right? And you go back to 2009, remember the team that was supposed to be better than the team that won the World Series? They started the season 11-9 in April. So for this year's Phillies, I think context is important. And you have to realize that starting the season 15-14 is pretty good. You just got to get yourself moving. And I thought there were a lot of positives to take away from what we saw in Houston with Nola, with Wheeler. I mean, you're getting contributions from Cody Clemens this weekend. I think these are all positives for us to take away from this weekend. And now going into this upcoming stretch of games, look, they're going to be tested in LA. Excuse me. It's not going to be easy to take on the Dodgers in Los Angeles, especially since the Dodgers are getting healthier too. But then you get to come home and you get to deal with Boston and Toronto, two good but not great teams. Then you got another road trip and then another homestand. And that road trip takes you back out west again. So the Phillies are going to be putting on the Travelers mile points this month. But what we do know is, look, you got through the first 19 games of the year with a winning record. I think it's a positive to take away from the Phillies. And now with Harper coming back, it's only going to bolster that lineup. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. Texter chimes in and says, luckily, Josh, you're not the coach, because if Harden is matched up with Brown, this will be a 4-game series. Well, here's a problem with your assessment. First of all, yes, I am not a NBA basketball coach, and I did not say it at Holiday Inn Express last night. But who else are you putting on Brown? Who is the priority defensively? Is it not Tatum? So Brown is number 2. So if Jaden McDaniels, for example, is guarding Tatum, then who are you putting on Brown? You're telling me that Maxey is going to give you more than Harden is going to? Harden is at least 6'5" and a solid maybe 20 pounds of muscle more than Maxey is. He can at least physically give Brown a test. You want Tobias Harris on him? PJ Tucker? See, it's easy to criticize my matchup when you don't have a solution. So, listen, I appreciate you texting into the show, but you got to have a solution. If you don't like Harden on Brown, who do you want on Brown? Because you're not benching Maxey for Melton, because you need Maxey's offense. So unless you're going to go super small ball, I mean, what are you going to do? Not start Tobias Harris? Come on. Danny HC, I see your message. We'll get to you a little bit later in the hour. But coming up next, let's review the NFL draft and the Eagles after the draft with Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press. Next on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a Monday night.
You haven't downloaded the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app? Well, go get it now to follow all the Philly sports teams at 97.3ESPN.com. Powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
My little brother's friends have been camped out at our place for 2 days straight. 3. It's because of the Xfinity 10G network. Internet that can handle a house full of screens at once with basically no interruptions. and it's only getting faster. When I was their age, internet like this was a pipe dream.
You sound like my grandpa.
Please go home.
Introducing the next generation 10G network, only from Xfinity. Now through June 21st, new customers can get 200 megabit per second internet with unlimited data on the next generation Xfinity 10G network for just $25 a month for 2 years with no annual contract. Go to xfinity.com/10G, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless billing and autopay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and fees extra. After promo, regular rates apply. Actual speeds vary and not guaranteed.
The Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board has once again increased the price of wine and spirits. To avoid this increase, shop with Total Wine & More and save up to 40%. Total Wine & More, offering the lowest prices for over 30 years. Drink responsibly, B21.
Ray Magliozzi here for eBay Motors. So you ordered a new air filter for your car. You try to install it, but it doesn't fit. So you take a little bit off the sides. What, still doesn't fit? Well, you could try to sit on it. Or get it right the first time with eBay Guaranteed Fit. When you see the check, you know that part's going to fit. Air filters, brakes, headlights, over 122 million parts. Get the right parts at the right prices. eBay Motors, let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Great, it's yours. See you then.
Nathan's Tiki-themed bar is swimming in end-of-year party bookings.
Where can I find that many servers? They want headlamps? And I'm going to need to find a band.
He needs caterers to navigate the rising tide.
No, Mario, not your cousin's cover band.
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. We instantly connect you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
O'Reilly. Does your vehicle have over 75,000 miles? Get maximum high-mileage engine protection with new Syntec Full Synthetic High-Mileage Motor Oil exclusively at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Right now, get 5 quarts of Syntec High Mileage and a MicroGuard Select Oil Filter for just $34.99. Limit supply. Ask for Syntec High Mileage at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
To every woman with a will and a workbench. Every mom with a miter saw she's not afraid to use. Every daughter with a drill and the drive. To the women who get their nail guns together. The ones who are welding the gap. The same ones who DIY like no one's watching. At the Home Depot, we see the potential in you because you see the potential in everything. The Home Depot, how doers get more done.
Tired of overpaying? Get to Matt Blatt Nissan and get $7,500 off any new Nissan Ariya, Armada, or Titan. Or pay 0% APR with 0 down on every new Nissan Rogue or Ultima in stock.
Oh yeah, it's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
Are you stuck in a loan or lease? AJ the Trade Man wants to get you released, so you can drive home in any new Nissan, Ultima, or Rogue with 0 down and 0 interest, or take $7,500 off MSRP on every new Nissan Ariya, Armada SUV, or Titan truck. And only Matt Blatt Nissan has a 4-day love it or leave it return policy. Have a job clearing $350 per week? We want to approve you today. And AJ wants your trade. MattBlattNissan.com. Rate qualifications exist with approved credits. $27.78 per thousand finance on in-stock 2023 Rogues, Pathfinder, Ultima. Not all will qualify. Go to MattBlattNissan.com for complete details or call 844-917-4758. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer, except for licensing, registration, and taxes. Nissan on the
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
We will get to Jeff in Ocean City, George in Summers Point, all you guys' messages and more coming up in about 20 minutes from now. But right now, we will get into the big news of the weekend. You know, over 54 million people consumed the NFL draft coverage on the network this weekend. So between the Eagles, basically drafting almost the entire Georgia football team, and us trying to figure out why exactly DeAndre Swift was traded, but DeAndre Hopkins was not. All that and more. Rob Maaddi covers the NFL for the Associated Press. He is back and joins us here on 97.3 ESPN. Rob, how are you recovering after the weekend?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. The smell of barbecue from Kansas City is still fresh in my nose. The city smells awesome. First time there. I'd never been to KC, so that was pretty cool. And the draft is a grind, man. It's 3 long days. It's a week of really a lot of activity, but got to do my my first draft grades ever, so that was cool too as well.
Was there a pick or a moment that stands out to you more than the others from the Thursday, Friday, Saturday marathon?
I think Bijan Robinson going at number 8 to Atlanta. I actually had him going to Atlanta at number 8, but didn't think so. Like I thought that would make sense because he's such a stud potential running back, but teams don't do that, right? They have not in recent years taken running backs that high. So I thought that might be perhaps a shift, a trend changer, because then you see the Lions trade up for Jahmyr Gibbs at 12. So those to me both stood out. The 2 running backs going top 12, first time I think since Fournette in 17, where you had 2 guys, and now I'm forgetting who the other guy was that year, going in the top 12. So that was kind of a standout moment. And of course, Will Levis. I think everybody watching the draft that night, just seeing him and the way, like I felt bad. Like he got they're panning over with the camera, and there's nothing he can do. He's just sitting there looking at his phone, talking to his family, all that stuff. And you see it every year almost. It happens to somebody that they're going to be forced to wait around and not go until the second round. And of course, from a Eagles and local perspective, Jalen Carter being there at number 9, that I had him going at 5 to Seattle. Didn't think he'd continue to slide and continue to drop, and he did. And the Eagles made a move to move up and grab him, which I think they got a very talented player, but there's got to be some concerns, Josh.
I want to ask you this question in a very specific way, because for those who don't remember, Rob Maaddi is also the host of Faith on the Field, heard Saturdays and Sundays on 97.3 ESPN. The situation with Jalen Carter, people keep referring to what happened off the field like he's a bad person instead of it being wrong place, wrong. That's how I look at it. He was in the wrong place in the wrong time when something horrible happened. He didn't kill anybody. He didn't commit domestic violence. He didn't, was never described as doing predatory behavior, right? So why do you think that NFL teams looked at him like a pariah when realistically it's not like what he did was something that at the end of the day should make the average person cringe?
I think it's beyond just that moment and that simple decision, that stupid decision, right, to race in the streets that led to an unfortunate and a very tragic accident. But Josh, I think what is surrounding Jalen Carter, one is you look at that situation, you look at that moment, you look at that decision, and there's whether or not there's accountability that's taken, initial whatever he said initially about it to the officers and investigators. But then beyond that, as teams start to do their homework, and I think we started to see some people reporting after the fact that there was some concern about Jalen from coaching staff that may not necessarily, like, I've heard some things. I always have a hard time putting anything out there that I hear that might be negative about a player, because you always have to consider the source. If it's coming from scouts, teams, that it's hard to believe stuff. If it's coming from coaches, they don't want to say anything bad or negative about a player. But I think there were enough conversations that teams had with people closer to Jalen Carter that led some folks, I think it was Todd McShay, maybe early a couple months ago, long before the accident even came out. I'm not sure. It was one of those draft guys. I think it was Todd. you may know better than me, Josh, who said he's a character concern. And I think it goes beyond the accident and that incident and some level of immaturity, lack of accountability, attitude, whatever it may be, that conversations with his coaches and people closer to him, that's what teams found out. And I think that's where the concern stems. I've heard enough to where I'm not going to ever throw a young man and say he is unredeemable or he can't mend his ways, or like everybody needs to grow up at some point. We all, I think, are different from when we're 20 to when we're 30 to when we're 40 to when we're 50 when we get there, or we should strive to be different. And I just feel that he's someone that the Eagles have to make sure he is surrounded with the right folks, gets the proper guidance, and can stay on track.
So then is it fair to say maybe the Eagles are the best situation for him because you have guys like Brandon Graham and Lane Johnson on that team, that you have, people have said that Nakobe Dean was the alpha of the Georgia locker room down on that football team, and that people believe that Nakobe Dean will personally help Jalen Carter stay on track, that Carter says that he looks up to Jordan Davis. So is it possible that if Carter would have gone anywhere else, this may have been more of a problem?
Yeah, I think the Eagles were the ideal fit for him. I thought Seattle was a great fit too because of Pete Carroll and the way he's able to, and some of the D-line coach there too as well. Some of the guys they've helped in the past. I remember having a conversation with Marcus Smith about this former Eagle first-round pick who ended up being pretty much a bust, who was in Seattle at the time, driving to practice one day, and he thought about driving off a cliff and committing suicide. Went to practice and told Pete Carroll and his D-line coach about it, and they sat down and they were really helpful for him. I thought these were the two best fits. So I thought that's why I figured, okay, if he's going to go early, top 5, it'll be Seattle. And if not, they didn't jump. They wanted Witherspoon. So the Eagles took him. And as you said and pointed out, everyone that they have there in Philly make this a really good fit for him, because I think they got the right guys: Graham, Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelce. Even on the other side, right? You can look at Lane Johnson, Jason Kelce, even Jalen Hurts and his demeanor, the way he goes about his business, even though he's a quarterback. Like, I think that rubs off on other guys, and they'll see the leaders on the team, the guys who are getting paid, and that should help Jalen Carter for sure, I believe.
Talking to Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press. You can follow him on Twitter at Rob Maaddi. That's 2 A's and 2 D's. I always got to remind people of that, Rob, that the spelling of your name. What was more of a surprise for you covering the league as you do? Is it Nolan Smith dropping to where he did? Or was it the fact that the Eagles walked away with a guy named Keely Ringo that people thought could maybe even potentially be a first, second round pick as late as he was?
I had the Eagles drafting Nolan Smith, but trading back to 17 to get him. So the fact that they got him at a 30 for me was tremendous. But I believe in the week or 2 weeks leading up into the draft, Nolan Smith, for whatever reason, was dropping from at one point, Josh, he was a top 10. He was a top 15. He was a top 12. And then some folks had him sliding into the late first round, into the second round. But I think people look at him as like a safe pick. He's a talented guy. He may not have the greatest upside, but you're going to get consistency out of him. So that was, to me, to walk out of that draft, beyond anything else, to have Jalen Carter, as talented as he is, to get Nolan Smith, to get those two standouts from Georgia, and then to not – you're not giving up much when they went from 9 to 10 and they were able to recoup some of that back. It was an A-plus draft for me. I didn't give too many A-pluses. I think it was just the Eagles I gave an A-plus to in Houston, and it was tremendous. And then you start adding Sidney Brown, Keely Ringo, to get some of those two guys. You add both of them to the secondary. I think it's got really strong draft potential. And of course, we don't know for 2 years, maybe 3 years, whatever it's going to take. But right now, on the surface, and then also to make a trade and bring in DeAndre Swift, like Howie's heroics are on the rise, and his executive of the year status is just solidified even further, Josh.
How surprised or not surprised were you that DeAndre Swift was traded, but DeAndre Hopkins is still a Cardinal?
Yeah, well, when they signed, the Lions had already signed David Montgomery, and as soon as when you see them reaching, I thought it was a reach for Jahmyr Gibbs, a running back at 12. When you do that, DeAndre Swift's days were numbered. Like you need 2 backs, you don't need 3. You just invested in a first rounder, and you invested in another guy as a free agent. That said all I needed to know about DeAndre Swift. So didn't realize they were going to be able to swing a deal immediately. Thought maybe he might be a guy who's just going to be a get cut. He's not really a cap casualty. He's not making that much money in the final year of his rookie deal. But DeAndre Hopkins, it started to look like, as we inched closer to the draft, that there wasn't anything on the horizon for him. Now, they're, to me, still a rebuilding team, and you saw them going back from 2 to 12 to 6 to wherever, all these moves they kept making. Doesn't make sense for them to have DeAndre Hopkins going into next year. They're a top 5 draft team in my view for 2024, and there isn't much that they can do to change that. So doesn't mean he's still going to be there. He's there. I can't foresee him staying there. It just doesn't make sense.
I want to ask you about the Texans, because I don't think we're talking enough about what the Texans did on day one. I mean, they get C.J. Stroud. I personally have C.J. Stroud as my best quarterback this year in the draft, personally. I'm not a draft expert, so, take my opinion with a grain of salt. But then you trade back up and get Will Anderson. I mean, you didn't just get 2 of the best players in the draft. You got 2 amazingly quality people for a locker room that is in a serious rebuild with a brand new head coach. I don't think we're giving the Texans enough credit for the draft that they put together.
I love DeMeco Ryans, his character, who he is as a head coach and as a person. And to see him bring in what you said, and C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson, who both, by the way, have been on Faith on the Field in the past couple of weeks. So I had opportunity to sit down with both of those guys ahead of the draft. C.J. Stroud, again, the day of the draft. Like last week, sat down with him again the day of. He didn't even know if he's going to go 2, 3, or 20. He even said, I don't know, 105, and I'm still going to go out there and play. And then to hear them speaking together, like they could not have brought into a team that needs a major reconstruction like Houston off of the Deshaun Watson debacle and everything that unfolded. 2 better men to be in that locker room, and one from each side. Will Anderson, who could be like, you have potentially the offensive and defensive rookies of the year next season. I had Stroud going 1 initially in my first mock draft, switched it to Bryce Young, not because I felt that should be the pick. I still like the bigger quarterback in CJ, but once I saw that the overwhelming favorite for the odds makers was Bryce Young, I didn't want to be wrong, so I put him first. But I'm with you. I think C.J. Stroud has an opportunity to be the better quarterback long term. I'm concerned about Bryce Young being able to withstand the rigors of the physicality of being in the NFL at his size. But I think Houston's a team that's going to be on the rise with these 2 young men that they brought in, potential leaders, high character guys, tremendous football players, and what they can do on both sides of the ball. And then you look at the rest of their draft, and I thought they got some value late. Xavier Hutchinson, a wide receiver, Jarrett Patterson in the 6th round, 2 guys that certainly will make that team, that were pretty valuable additions later in the draft, guys that were mocked a little bit earlier. So I like what they're doing. I still think they got a long way to go.
Yeah, also Henry 2020 from Alabama as well. He might be an interesting guy to keep an eye on. Listen, I'm not saying the Texans are going to win 12 games next year. I'm just saying that they're probably going to be better than last year. I think that's a safe assumption.
Yeah, and I guess the Cardinals will be rooting for them to lose as many games as possible since they own their pick for next year. But they still have Cleveland's 1st round picks. So
can I ask you about the Cardinals real quick?
Yeah.
Do we read anything in the Jonathan Gannon like not wanting to talk to the media after the draft, or is that just a weird situation that we shouldn't read anything into?
That's a finable situation because I think you're obligated to talk to the media after the draft. I don't know, what's going on there. It's pretty odd because you get all these picks and that's part of the job, Jonathan, right? Like that's what you do. I don't know if is he ticked at the whole thing that went down with the Eagles having the compensation and how that went down and how they tampered somewhat and made a mistake and talked to him while they weren't supposed to, and he didn't want to explain that. I don't know what it is, but Jonathan Gannon, I think we saw a little bit, Josh, when he was in Philly, doesn't have thick enough skin, right? He hears the criticism. He hears it. And I think he made a comment at one point, I don't know where it was, where he talked about like being in a news conference with the Eagles reporters and saying, yeah, we want you fired. Like he was trying to make a point that in Philly, even having a great defense wasn't good enough and people wanted him fired. But that never transpired. It never went down that way. Nobody sat in a news conference. Well, no Eagles beat writer, Jeff McClain, Reuben Frank didn't say, hey, we want you fired. They don't say that. That doesn't happen. So he was trying to make a point and exaggerated the story. And I don't know if that led to him, a whole combination of things. It's just a bad look. It's a bad look when you're a first-year head coach.
Yeah, it's going to be, I don't know, man. I'm a little concerned about the Cardinals if their head coach is already going through this early in the season. A couple more before I let you go, Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. What is your perspective on what we saw this weekend? You had multiple teams with multiple first-round picks. Outside of the Eagles and the Texans, one of those teams was the Lions with two questionable picks, we'll call it, whereas Seattle, I felt they hit a home run with their two first-round picks. What were your thoughts on the Lions and Seattle?
Yeah, I didn't like the Lions at all. Once you take at number 12 Jahmyr Gibbs and you take a running back. I like Jack Campbell, the linebacker out of Iowa. I thought this is a team that needs defensive help, and I thought they're going to address defense because they already got a solid and explosive type offense. So overall, wasn't really high on their draft. Seattle, I love what they were able to do with at number 5. Even though I thought they were going to go Carter, you can't go wrong taking the best corner in the draft in Witherspoon from Illinois. I know some people didn't have him as the top corner. I did. He's the high, and he goes first. And then for Seattle to take Jackson Smith in Jigba, I thought that be able to add him to that offense with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and what they're building there and giving Geno Smith another weapon, that's a pretty tremendous first round for the Seattle Seahawks. And I'm trying to remember who they got the rest of the draft, but that you walk away with the best corner and you walk away with the highest rated wide receiver in that draft, you're doing pretty good. Oh, and Derek Hall, the edge from Auburn, they get him in the second round, and they add Zach Charbonnet, the running back from UCLA, also in the second round. Like overall, this to me, a lot of people are handing the division to the 49ers, but the 49ers are going to have some concern at quarterback until Brock Purdy is ready to go. I saw Brock Purdy, by the way, we're working out in the same gym at the hotel in Kansas City. He was there for Buffalo Wild Wings. He was not there to announce the Mr. Irrelevant pick. He was doing something else, and he looks like he's coming along. Obviously he wasn't doing what I was doing in the gym because of the elbow. But when he's ready, I think they'll be okay. But they're going to have to navigate that first part of the season with probably Trey Lance or Sam Darnold, however that unfolds. I think Seattle has a shot with the additions. I look at Witherspoon and Jackson Smith-Jigba, who can come in there and make an immediate impact. I think they have a shot to really compete for that division. I see the Rams and the Cardinals both as potential last place teams. So what Seattle did for me just kind of increased their chances of coming out of that NFC West. When all's said and done, I'm still probably leaning towards the Niners, but I really think they've narrowed that gap a little bit.
Speaking of the NFC West, I got to ask you about the Rams. Is there anything more Sean McVay than drafting Stetson Bennett from Georgia?
That's pretty good way to look at it, you know. And Stetson Bennett is a winner, obviously. Late bloomer. What is he? 25 years old. Going to be 26 years old.
Yeah.
They got Matthew Stafford. You don't know what his future is going to look like. There was some thought, even Josh, that Matthew Stafford was going to potentially retire. He's not. He hasn't. But he hasn't said anything definitive beyond this year. So they needed a young guy, somebody to groom. It may not end up being Stetson Bennett for the long term, for the future, but why not? Sean McVay, you know, he's the quarterback whisperer. He wants to bring somebody in there, and he's got a guy who's a proven winner for sure. And hey, look at what he did with Baker Mayfield for a couple games last year. I got to give. I've been a Sean McVay critic over the years. I just thought like he was so hyped up, and I loved how Doug Peterson would always come out on top. But you got to give him some credit. He was able to help out Baker Mayfield and put him back on the map for a little bit. So it's a good fit for Stetson Bennett. I don't think he's the long-term future there, but you never know, man. Nobody said Brock Purdy was going to be the future of the 49ers when he was picked last year, and that worked out.
Yeah, it's almost like, you know, McVay was sitting around, you know, and said, you know what, Kyle Shanahan, you did this with Brock Purdy. I'm going to one-up you. I'm going to take Stetson Bennett and watch me. You know, because, you know, these guys are competitive, right, Rob? These guys are just so ridiculous.
Except he did it in the 4th round, right? Yeah, Kyle Shanahan will always be able to say, hey, I took this guy last pick, top that. There's no topping that. And, you know, but of course, Brock's got to come back and win. He can't be a one-year wonder. Yeah, well, the only person who's got a one-up on everybody is Dick Vermeil and Kurt Warner at this point. Everybody else is kind of reaching for that grocery store. Yeah,
exactly. He's Rob Maaddi at Rob Maaddi on Twitter. Covers the NFL for the Associated Press. Check out the AP Pro Football Podcast. And don't forget, Faith on the Field, Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Sunday morning is the encore on 97.3 ESPN. Rob, appreciate you jumping on today.
Thanks, Josh. Take care, buddy.
We'll get your guys' thoughts and comments on the other side. Text board is open. A plethora of texts. 609-403-0973. Your DMs in the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle.
It's Sixers Celtics Game One tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
The Sixers steal the ball. Here's Belt with a jam. The Sixers stuff it. Are you kidding me?
It's Sixers playoff basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7:30. Listen to every Sixers playoff game here on 97.3 ESPN.
New Jersey is the little state with big opinions, especially when it comes to the name of our iconic breakfast meat. But the debate can finally be won. Play the New Jersey Lottery's new scratch-offs, the Jersey Debate. Name that meat for the chance to win up to $200,000. Anything can happen in Jersey.
We're recording this Progressive commercial on a real boat to let people know that when you bundle your home, boat, and other vehicles...
What was that, Flo?
Progressive saves you money, Jamie.
Why are we doing this on a boat?
We were going for authenticity.
We're going to the city?
Authenticity.
You mean Atlantic City? But we're not in the Atlantic. Are we?
Bundle your home and other vehicles with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Discount not available in all states or situations.
It's the final days of Spring Black Friday at the Home Depot, and we have laundry appliances that fit your space, your needs, and your budget. Like a new Samsung laundry set with large capacity, so you spend less time doing laundry. And with sensor dry technology to automatically optimize time and temperature, you'll spend less energy on it too. Final days to save up to $600 on this Samsung laundry set in-store and online during Spring Black Friday at the Home Depot. Ends May 3rd.
I studied Spanish in college and never got fluent. But then I tried Babbel.
Want the most effective way to learn another language? In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel's bite-sized lessons will have you learning another language in as little as 3 weeks.
Babbel gets you speaking quickly about things you actually talk about in the real world.
University studies have shown that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a semester of college Spanish. If you want to learn a new language, there's no better way than Babbel. Go to Babbel.com to try Babbel for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Hey, take me out of my old car. Get me out of this heap. Approve my credit and cut me some slack. I need a dealer that's watching my back. I gotta make sure it's a great deal. All I have down is my trade. Cause I need a great deal on a brand new car.
Stuck in a loaner lease? Matt Blatt Kia wants to get you released. With 0 down and 2.9% financing for 48 months or no payments for 90 days on every 2023 Kia Forte at Soul in stock. Have a job clearing $350 per week? Matt Blatt Kia wants to approve you today. So bring any trade to Matt Blatt Kia and drive home in a brand new Kia with peace of mind. Matt Blatt Kia's exclusive 4-day love it or leave it return policy.
It's gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
With approved credit, not all qualify. 2778 per thousand finance. Go to mattblattkia.com for complete details or call 888-505-6670. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer except for licensing, registration, and taxes. 3023. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and now on Route 37 in Toms River.
A lot of new enrollments, huh? Braylon, Braden.
Monique's daycare is crawling with new arrivals.
Hey, sweetie, are you hungry?
She needs more early childhood educators.
Did your sock slip off again?
And a nap.
Hey there, little guy. Okay. Shh. Whoa.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. We instantly connect you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Today is the day. Today is the day you empty your garage and closets of your old tech. Today is the day you hang up on that dial-up modem. Today is the day you tell that old GPS to get lost. Because while Staples recycles old tech for free each and every day, today, during Staples' free Tech Take Back, Rewards members get $10 in Staples Rewards when they recycle their tech. Cut the cord on your old tech and recycle it at Staples. N617. Limit 1 reward per month. Exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/recycling for details.
Homeowners trust Jenkins Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Business owners trust Jenkins too for light commercial services. No need to call the drain guy, the heater guy, or the plumbing guy. Call Jenkins. One call does it all. For new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, oil service, plumbing, and drain cleaning services. Call now and learn about rebates through the HVAC Energy Efficiency Program, brought to you by South Jersey Gas. Call 609-641-6262 or visit jenkinsandsons.com.
Now, more Game Night with ESPN and the free mobile app.
We got a plethora of messages to get into here as we finish up the Power Hour here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you ahead of Sixers Celtics Game One tonight. Tom McGinnis gives you all the action starting at 7:30 here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm going to try to get through all of these messages that came in. A lot of people have a lot to say this hour. So let's hear from the people. Dan in EHT chimes in and says, please, Sixers, trade Embiid. He's an injury waiting to happen. 6 out of 7 playoffs. He's had a significant injury. Come on. That's from Dan in EHT. Well, first of all, Dan, you say that like trading Embiid is so easy. Like it's just, this isn't a video game, okay? First of all, trading Embiid means that you're giving up the league MVP. You know how bad that would look if you gave up the league? Like, the league MVP doesn't get traded. There's only a couple of times where a player of that caliber has ever been traded. And typically, it doesn't work out very well for the team trading the guy. Remember, the Sixers traded Charles Barkley before he won MVP, and they got a bunch of nothing for him. When Oklahoma City traded away Russell Westbrook after he won MVP to Houston, it didn't work out too well for them either. And if you want to say Kawhi Leonard was kind of sent to the Clippers, when he left the Clippers and the Raptors went to the Clippers, it didn't work out for the Raptors either. So you say like getting rid of Embiid is the solution. I think the better solution is find better talent around him. You don't have to depend on him as much. But any team that loses an MVP, look at Giannis in the first round of the Bucks. You want to trade Giannis to get a back contusion? No. Jordan Summers Point chimes in and says, "Hey Josh, I agree with your lineup for tonight, McDaniel, but I do not think Doc will do it because I don't think he is good at making adjustments like that that are a little outside the box. Doc has proven in the past he's a fairly conservative coach. He's not like to make major changes, especially with young talent. I'd like to hear your opinion on that. Thanks as always, George. George, you're right. Doc has a history of being very structured and regimented in how he handles the game. I do agree that that's very true. I think though that for tonight, you would hope that Doc has the awareness to say, look, I know that we're not going to win with just doing what we always do. Being 11-5 in the regular season without Embiid is not the same as facing Boston and trying to avoid losing 4 times in the 7-game series. Those are two very different things. So I think that you're right. Doc has a history of being conservative. I don't think it's specifically, though, not good with young players. People forget that when he was playing Kendrick Perkins and Rajon Rondo all those minutes, those were very young guys. So I don't think Doc is anti-young player. I think that's been a false error. I think Doc is an impatient coach. I think he's like Coach Penn from Draft Day, where Coach Penn says that I can't stand rookie quarterbacks because they're basically learning on the job. I think that's maybe more Doc's problem than specifically young players. Jeff in Ocean City chimes in at 609-403-0973. Says, Josh, I still believe the Sixers will win this series against Boston. I know the Celtics have more talent, but we need to advance out of the second round. This from Jeff in Ocean City. Look, if the Sixers play with a sense of urgency tonight, I don't think the Celtics are going to win easily. If they play the way they played at times this year, they fought in tooth and nail for their opportunity, for their shot, it could be an interesting game tonight for sure. Andrew Summers Point says, Josh, I don't understand. Explain this to me. Embiid is not healthy enough to play tonight, but he will be Wednesday when we're already down a game. Like tonight's game isn't important enough? ? This concept of stealing a game is horrible. If he doesn't play tonight but plays Wednesday, that's weak. Whatever his knee feels like tonight, it will be like it Wednesday. Horrible decision. That's Andrew Summers Point. Well, Andrew, here's how I can explain it. To say that a player is going to feel the same tonight as he will Wednesday is a farce. People who are much smarter than me in the medical field have explained that healing is not linear. It actually works in like climbing a mountain with different plateaus. And that Embiid is not going to be the same as he is now or extremely better than he was yesterday on Wednesday. The doctors are trying to project out the recovery of his knee. For all we know, he may have inflammation in his knee right now. There might be an issue with they want the inflammation to come down before he goes out there. Maybe Embiid doesn't feel right. Maybe the doctors don't like his lateral movement right now. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they could say he's likely to play Wednesday, not tonight. It's not as simple as if you're good to play Wednesday, you play tonight. I think that's a very naive and narrow-minded way of looking at things. As I said, medical professionals, the way they explain these things is anytime you injure a joint, the recovery process is layered because you're dealing with a ligament in a joint that is already weakened. And now if you put him out there with a weakened joint or an inflamed joint, what you're going to happen is that you have the potential to damage other parts of the body. All right, thanks to Rob Maaddi for joining us today. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. I'll catch you tomorrow. All right, I haven't done a post show here on the channel for a while. I've been busy with different contests, things at the radio station, but this was very important for me to say after the show today. So for those who are watching on the YouTube side only, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends. Deion Sanders, Pro Football Hall of Famer, now the head coach of the University of Colorado, former head coach of Jackson State, said he was very disappointed in the NFL because the NFL only drafted one player from an HBCU in the draft this year. HBU standing for historically black colleges and universities. Last year, there were 3 to 4 players selected throughout the draft, and then more players were signed afterwards in the undrafted free agency. And this year, only Isaiah Bolden was drafted by the Patriots. And Deion said he was very disappointed in the NFL for doing this. But I don't think it's as simple as people are making it out to be, because it's not that the NFL is racist or they have a racial bias against HBCUs. The problem is that it's the same mindset that fans have about quarterbacks. Here's what I mean. People are saying a CJ Stroud has a chance to be a bust in the NFL because he went to Ohio State. Now, that sounds irrational, right? Not to some people. See, to some people, they say all these Ohio State quarterbacks, they're byproducts of the system and be playing with great players. For years, we've always said that University of Southern California, USC, is a horrible quarterback school because every quarterback comes out of there does not meet their potential, right? It's Mark Sanchez, it's Matt Leinart, it's Sam Darnold. Only Carson Palmer really got anywhere close to his potential. So we should never draft quarterbacks from USC, right? But wait, Caleb Williams is the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, and he's the top prospect in the draft next year. Why are we going to make an exception for him but not for CJ Stroud at Ohio State? Is it because CJ Stroud is not as physically gifted as Anthony Richardson, who, by the way, Florida's a school that has no good quarterbacks come out of there. Come on, Tim Tebow, Danny Werfel, Shane Matthews. You ever heard of these guys? Of course you have. Unless you're a diehard football fan. The casual fan can name all the great quarterbacks, but they can't name what schools they went to. Joe Montana, Notre Dame. Tom Brady went to Michigan. Peyton Manning went to Tennessee. John Elway went to Stanford. We're not looking at any of the schools I just named as quarterback factories. No, you have to judge the players on their individual merits. I think that's the problem with people misinterpreting what Deion Sanders said. I don't think Deion was insinuating at all that the NFL is a bunch of racists. I think Deion was saying is we have to stop stereotyping HBCUs the way people stereotype quarterbacks from certain colleges. The idea that just because you went to a certain school does not elevate or devalue your ability to play football. That we should judge people on who they are, not what school they went to. Because if we did that over the years, you would have never had Walter Payton in Chicago. You would have never had many great players over the years like Phil Simms for the Giants, Steve McNair, who played for the Titans and later the Ravens. How about Randall Cunningham with the Eagles and later the Vikings? I mentioned Kurt Warner earlier in the show. He was a nobody, undrafted free agent, went on to be Super Bowl champion, league MVP, Pro Football Hall of Famer. I think the bigger issue is that we got to stop judging people based on the name on the front of the jersey and judge athletes for the name on the back of the jersey. Because the name on the front of the jersey is an institution. The name on the back of the end of the jersey is an individual. If you're drafting the individual, don't worry about the institution. Worry about the person. I think that's what Deion Sanders was trying to get at. At Josh Hennig here on my YouTube channel, at Josh Hennig on Twitter. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. And I'll catch you tomorrow right here for Game Night on 97.3 ESPN.